By now you know that a significant amount of data is collected while conducting monitoring activities. This final module is about collating that data into reports and using data analysis results as the basis for program modifications. Reporting related to external monitoring was covered previously. To recap, the mill should receive a report from the regulatory authority shortly after each audit and inspection visit. The report should include the audit checklist, observations made during the visit, results of flour sample analysis, recommendations, and any required corrective actions. What we did not previously discuss, however, was what to do with that report. Keep the original or a copy of each audit and inspection report on file at the mill, the National Office of the Food Control Authority, and the Central Collection Center for the Flour Fortification Program. Upload relevant data to the Fortification Program database as well. For import monitoring, customs officials at each border site should prepare a report of the flour and premix that has entered the country. This should be done quarterly at the beginning of the program. After you are sure the program is running smoothly, these reports can be done twice a year or annually. The flour section of the report should include these items: the amount of flour imported, the number of batches that were accompanied by an appropriate certificate of analysis or COA, the number of batches that were tested qualitatively, the number of batches that were fortified as confirmed by a qualitative test, the number of batches that were tested quantitatively, and the number of batches that were fortified in accordance with the fortification standard based on the quantitative test results. In the report, flour data should be categorized by flour type, producer, and brand if possible. We'll look at an example in a moment. The premix section of the report should include these items: the amount of premix imported, the number of batches that were accompanied by an appropriate certificate of analysis, the number of batches that were tested quantitatively, the number of batches that were compliant with the fortification standard. In the report, premix data should be categorized by producer. This chart reports on flour for the period of January through March from Border Control Site number 5. The type of flour is refined white flour, as noted at the top of the chart. The two producers in this example are Wheat is Good and Best Flour. 3 brands from Wheat is Good and 2 brands from Best Flour were imported during the period. The chart provides details about the amount of flour imported, number of COAs, number of qualitative and quantitative tests, and the test results for each brand. A similar chart for premix would also be included in the report, as you can see here. The level of categorization is simply by producer. A copy of these reports should be filed at the National Office of the Food Control Authority and the Central Collection Center for the Flour Fortification Program. Relevant data should be uploaded to the program database as well. For commercial monitoring, laboratories responsible for receiving and testing the fortified flour should produce a quarterly report at the beginning of the program. After the program is running smoothly, these reports can be produced twice a year or annually. The reports will indicate whether each flour sample was fortified and will include the type and content of each vitamin and mineral that was analyzed. The report should be categorized by flour type, producer, and brand if possible. File a copy of each report at the National Office of the Food Control Authority and the Central Collection Center for the Flour Fortification Program. Upload relevant data to the program database as well. A summary report of all regulatory monitoring data should be compiled at least annually. The report can be outlined as you see here. First, it is always helpful to introduce the fortification program and provide some background information. This can be followed by the central part of the report, which describes the indicators included in the report, explains the data collection methods, shares the results of the data analysis, and interprets those results. The closing portion of the report can list accomplishments and challenges in addition to recommendations. It is very important that the country's monitoring plan designate the entity responsible for writing the summary reports. The responsible parties should be the multi-sector alliance or a committee within that alliance. Another option could be the Statistics Division of the Ministry of Health, which may also act as the central collection center for the flour fortification program. Summary reports should be made available to all key flour fortification stakeholders, such as involved flour millers, government agencies, international organizations, and civic groups. It is recommended to share key findings from monitoring summary reports with the public as well. This can be done in a variety of ways, such as presentations, a newspaper article, radio or television media coverage, or a government website. Think about what would work best for your country. Now we will move on to the second part of the module, using data. During the fortification program planning stage, stakeholders make informed decisions based on several factors, such as the known or estimated nutrition status of the population, the funding that can be committed, the technical capacity of the flour mills and the laboratories, the human resources available, and the quantity of flour that is imported versus the quantity that is produced locally. And these are just a few of the variables considered. But over time, the program will need to evolve. Monitoring educates stakeholders about the status of the flour fortification program. If the results of data analysis indicate that the fortification program is functioning well and is on track to meet its objectives, celebrate the progress. If, however, the results suggest that the program is not functioning as hoped, the monitoring summary report should include practical recommendations for modifying the program. For instance, the report might advise an amendment to the fortification legislation or standard. Or it might recommend tighter border control at the port due to a high proportion of unfortified flour available in the surrounding area. However, how do such recommendations become reality? The multi-sector alliance, with representatives from the public, private, and civic sectors, should take responsibility for reviewing each summary report in detail and gathering stakeholders to catalyze action. When stakeholders meet to discuss how to move forward with their recommendations, it will be important to agree upon priority modifications, assign duties to relevant stakeholders, schedule future meetings, develop a timeline for action, and set deadlines. These factors increase the likelihood that the program changes will be achieved in a timely manner. Having finished the module, we now move on to the conclusion of the course. You should now be able to recall basic key monitoring concepts and feel more confident in your ability to engage in monitoring activities. Please share this new knowledge with your colleagues and tell them about this course. The next step is to put your new knowledge to use. If your country has a monitoring system, take some time to assess its strengths and weaknesses based on what you have learned here. If your country does not have a monitoring system, gather some like-minded people to start the planning process. I will leave you with 4 key points from the course. First, the goal of a national flour fortification program is to improve the nutrient intake and nutrient status of your country's population. Always remember that by engaging in this initiative, you are helping people be smarter, stronger, and healthier. Mothers, fathers, grandparents, school-age children, and especially developing babies. Next, monitoring gives you confidence that your flour fortification program is working. Without it, you are investing in the initiative blindly. Third, the primary emphasis of regulatory monitoring should be audits. If the fortification process is active and QA/QC protocols are in place and appropriately followed, you can reasonably assume that flour is being fortified properly. Lastly, for monitoring to be worthwhile, the data must be analyzed and the results used to inform program change and growth. On behalf of GAIN, FFI, and the IGP Institute of KSU, I would like to thank you for your interest in flower fortification monitoring. I would like to acknowledge all individuals who made guest appearances, reviewed course materials, and provided videos, photos, and examples to enhance the course content. And congratulations to all participants who successfully completed this course.